Well, no, it's really always interesting how an artist paint company begins.
Where'd the name R&F come from?
The name R&F came from the fact that when I first started the company in 1988, and I was there all alone in this little basement studio, I found that the last thing I wanted anybody to know was that I was only one person. So I came up with the thought of calling the company R&F, using my initials, but making it at least sound like two people instead of one. When I first started the business, I, of course, wasn't able to make a living off of it. I was working as a framer and using most of my money to buy raw materials. I would contact pigment companies for samples of their pigments and say, look, I'm just starting out, could you send me double your usual sample size? And so they would, and I was able to have enough to make my initial batches of paint. Slowly I made enough money so that I could then buy larger quantities of materials. But initially it was really tough going, and it came right out of wages I was making doing something else entirely. I was a painter who had always had a great interest in materials. When the gallery I was with saw the way I was working, they suggested that I try encaustic paint. And it just so happened that the store that I shopped at, a very little store in Manhattan named Torch Art Supplies, carried encaustic. And what I didn't realize at the time was that they were the only ones in the world who carried it. They started having it made for them in the late 1940s. I was their encaustic expert on the basis of the fact that on a scale of 1 to 10, I knew 1 and everybody else there knew 0. The first job I had when I started working there was to bag down pigment that they had just gotten in. Nobody wanted to do that job, and I was the new kid on the block, and they sent me down into the basement with a respirator and an apron, and I had to bag down all these pigments. And man, I was a pig in shit. I was in my element. This was really great. I was connecting with all these different colors on their most elemental level. It was trial and error, but the amount of knowledge started climbing from 1 to 1.5 to 2 to 3, and by 1987 the store closed, and I was not sure at first what I wanted to do, but I did start approaching other stores. Around the time that I was at Torch, I had the very fortuitous experience of meeting Karl Plansky, who also started working there back in the around 1984 or 5. Karl was a wonderful painter, imbued with the romance of materials as much as I was, and he said, you know, you really know enough about wax that I think you would really make a great oil stick. And it was he, if I remember rightly, I think it was he who came up with the name pigment sticks. I wanted it to be so much more like paint than like a crayon. I wanted it to feel like thick paint in your hand that you were just holding and just applying directly without a brush. And that's what, to me, was what I thought an oil stick should be. It wasn't, to me, just what would sell best, I was starting from an artist's point of view. I wanted to make something that was really a good product, and one that felt like it was something that both the artists I sold to and I both felt was unusual and different, simply because of its character and quality. Suddenly I realized that this was what making paint really was. I keep going round and round telling the same jokes. Oh well. I know.